Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
All right, we are now joined by Dr. Fred Petito joining us here from Attain Leadership from New York City. He's here to talk more about his executive coaching and so much more. Fred, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Great. Thanks, Jill. How are you?
Good. Please, would love to get to know you. Obviously, I want to learn more about Attain Leadership, but also personally get to know you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I've been in the marketing services business for over 20 years. I started out as a lawyer, but then went into marketing kind of during the dot-com boom. I live in New York. I grew up in the New York area. I completed a doctorate in marketing a couple of years back. I've started this consulting, advisory, and coaching business that's really focused on marketing executives, advertising executives. It's something that I'm very passionate about and something that I think is an area that needs some support. So I'm excited about doing this.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about Attain Leadership and all that it does for people. I know it helps develop leadership amongst, a lot of CEOs, executives out there, and you also are advising them. Share a little bit about Attain Leadership, and also, what is the website? How can we find you?
It's attainleadership.com.
Perfect. All right. So tell us the details.
All right.
What it is
Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think the reason why I'm doing this is that I've been in marketing for a long time. Like I said, I have a doctorate in marketing, so it's my area of expertise. And I've always loved it, and I've always enjoyed it. But I have always felt that there's a lot of opportunity for folks to elevate their ability to lead. So there are many, many great marketers out there, very talented people. Both in agencies, on client side, in industry, and whether you're in marketing research or just brand management or product management. One of the things that I think a lot of marketers kind of struggle with is advancing their career once they they max out as a marketer, right? And in most big organizations, general managers, division presidents, CEOs, if you will, they come from functions. They come from finance. They come from marketing. They come from sales. They come from operations, manufacturing. And one of the things that is a challenge for these folks is once they reach their full capacity or expertise as a operations, manufacturing, marketing, salesperson, all of a sudden now they're in this leadership role, right? Where they have 8, 10, 12 different functions reporting into them. So the skills that got them to be a fabulous marketer or sales executive or whatever are different skills that are going to make them very successful general managers or division presidents or group, whatever it is. So that's kind of where I'm focusing, and it's focusing on those marketers that want to step into those leadership roles. It's a very exciting area because I think they have such great skills, but maybe there's a little bit of development opportunity on kind of the organizational savvy, the ability to kind of think differently about different challenges that they're presented with from their old role. And the reason why marketing is such an exciting area is, there's so much data about the brief tenure of chief marketing officers. It's kind of like a football or baseball coach. You get 2 seasons to get to the Super Bowl or to the World Series, or at least to the playoffs. And if you don't make it, a lot of times, you're done. You go to the next club, or you do whatever you're finished. So the turnover among chief marketing officers, especially in large Fortune 500 companies, is very high. The tenure is very brief. It's on average, I think, about 39 months. Little under 3.5 years, if you will. And so you look at the CEO, the average tenure maybe 8 years. The CFO, maybe it's 5 years. The list goes on. But for some reason, when it gets to the chief marketing officer, they don't have that long runway. And so if you look at the management literature, you look at the business literature, it's all about, listen, you could be the most incredible marketer or executive in the world. I mean, you may have amazing technical skills, but if you don't know how to kind of navigate the organization, sell the proposition, get supportive alliances across the organization, you're going to struggle because the fact is that marketing, and I've worked on major brands, major companies, global and campaigns. The budgets are enormous. When you look at a company's balance sheet, the marketing expenditures are always a big ticket item. And so if you're not able to quickly explain why you're spending that money, what the ROI to the organization is, and how it's going to grow their business, and not only the senior executives, but the board of directors, if you're not able to like get them bought in, you got some challenges, and that's why we have such a short tenure among chief marketing officers. So I mean, so my vision, my mission, my passion is all about helping marketers as they evolve, become better at leading through this kind of, I don't want to say a hornet's nest, but this complex web of leadership challenges.
All right. Now you have 3 different customized leadership development programs specifically.
Yeah.
Did you want to talk about some of them?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way the business is structured, we do coaching. Coaching is coaching. Coaching is working with a client. It could be an emerging marketing leader. It could be a mid-level, or kind of senior level executive, or it could be a chief marketing officer or another C-level. And the objective of coaching is all about working with people to help them kind of think about how they're approaching challenges and help them help them identify, define, and solve the challenges or opportunities that they're presented with, right? It's not about giving them advice. It's not about mentoring them. It's about kind of helping them through a process of question and answering and dialogue, help them kind of clarify their thinking and get their goals clarified and get an action path forward. So that's coaching, right? And coaching is very powerful. It can be very effective. The programs are more structured, right? So it's combination coaching and a little bit of advisory, right? So one program is called the Emerging Leader Program, and that is all about for marketers in industry or advertising or PR or other agency executives that are kind of coming up in their organization. It's preparing them for leadership roles. And again, this goes back to what I was saying before, is that they may be fantastic, digital marketers or social media marketers or brand managers, but they may not have had a chance to develop the leadership skills that are going to help them as they grow in their organization. So the idea is, so this is based on a program called the Leadership Challenge, which is a very robust leadership model that's been around for over 30 years. And there's hundreds of, two business school professors developed this based on hundreds of studies. And so there's a model, there's a framework, there's five exemplary practices, and we work through those practices. But what's unique about it is it's not just looking at them in isolation as a it's like, hey, this is a concept, a leadership concept. Let's talk about it. And it's like, okay, great, I understand it. That's wonderful. And I've done executive training before. The problem with a kind of a school book learn or a kind of textbook learning is that it's like, I get the concept, great, but if you don't apply that concept at least 3 times, it doesn't become behavior, it doesn't become mindset, it doesn't become habit. So what we do is we identify opportunities to apply the learning. So if we learn something about, building rapport with a team member, or we do something about, how to establish kind of a vision that excites people. Well, let's try it. And let's see what works. Let's see what doesn't work, because you're not always going to get it right in the first time. So that's the emerging leader program. It's based on this best practice leadership framework. The next one is more about transitioning executives, onboarding and transitioning. A big one of the riskiest times in any executive's career is when they're changing roles, changing jobs, going to a new organization, or going to a new division, or getting promoted. There's a lot of there's a lot of risk, right? The failure rate. I think this is I think it's McKinsey data or wherever. C-level executives, the average failure rate is about 2 years, right? So people are hired as a CTO, a CIO, a CMO, or whatever, and about 40% of those folks within 2 years are either in a different role or have left the organization. So a lot of these roles aren't always secure, and so the transition and onboarding accelerator program is all about, how do we set people up for success? How do you hit the ground running? It's like the first 100-day plan, but it's that plus, right? It's like first 100 days that's not a lot. 100 days is not a lot of time. 100 days gives you a little bit of time to figure out what's going on and develop a plan. Then you need some support after that. So that's the second program, the transition and accelerator program. I've been in transitions in my career, and I've tried to kind of do that kind of thing on my own, like self-coach myself. And it's not easy, because once you're kind of in the trenches and you're in meetings all day, you have meetings with your boss, you have meetings with your team, all of a sudden, the brain power that you had available and the time you had available to say, I'm going to be intentional and deliberate about how I approach this job are immediately gone. So you're at your own kind of, you start getting into this reactive mode, right? And so the whole point of that program is to work with executives at these high stakes, high risk moments to give them the support and guidance they need. Again, coaching plus like advice and a structured, organized way. It's based on this program. So that's the onboarding and transition accelerator. The third program is one I'm very excited about, is I call it the Agile Leader Program. And this is all about, it's really about mindset shifts and behavioral shifts, leadership shifts. And I think what we've seen in the past 3-4 years with COVID, but also just with constant technology disruption, new market entrants, no industry seems to be immune from disruption, right? So leaders today, especially if you're in a startup or if you're in a more very entrepreneurial environment, they need to bring a new mindset, right? A lot of what people may have learned in business school or through mentoring in the past, a lot of the assumptions of leadership were based on a more fixed landscape. Things just weren't as there wasn't as much velocity, there wasn't as much confusion, there wasn't as much noise in the marketplace. So the Agile Leader Program is all about helping executives adapt and adopt to this kind of this constantly in flux marketplace. So the types of things we focus on, the big one is moving from a reactive mindset to a creative mindset. And this is all based on adult development theory and how people kind of approach, react, and behave in the world around them, right? So the idea is to move from a reactive mindset, which is you're putting out fires and you're addressing things that are immediately in front of your face, which is common. But the problem with that is if you're always putting out fires, you're not able to stick to your strategy, stick to your vision, stick to your principles, stick to your values. And that's where a lot of executives, especially in these very fast-paced environments, these volatile environments, these uncertain environments, run into trouble. So it's about learning to be more nimble, learning to be more agile. It's other types of mindsets we're talking about are, moving from a fixed to a growth mindset. That's a big one, especially for executives that have bidding in industries where there's only a couple of competitors, and usually, the way you're going to grow is by stealing share from your competitors. The zero-sum game mindset, right? The idea being that it's a $5 billion market, and it's not growing. It's growing at 2% a year, and how are we going to grow? Well, the only way we're going to grow is we're going to, maybe get half of that 2%, but we got to steal share from our competitors. So it's a very fixed, mindset. And the idea here is to get out of that fixed mindset and get into a growth mindset, and to look for adjacencies, look for alternative strategies, look for different ways to expand your business. And that takes time, because, people who are in organizations for a long time, they inherit the kind of habitual mindsets, right? These narratives about how the world is around them, and they get caught into these very stringent strategic planning methodologies that these big companies have. And so, how do you bust out of that? How do you break out of that? And how do you challenge kind of that status quo? So that's a couple of mindsets that we talk about in this Agile Leader program. And the other kinds of things are about leadership style, right? That we all know the command and control, top-down leadership style has not been in favor for a long time. Thank God. It's not I think a very healthy or I know they got people feel enriched in that environment. So again, how do you empower people to take ownership of things? How do you give them what they need to be successful? How do you create the right relationships and the right culture and the right dynamics so that people they feel enriched, they feel engaged, they feel satisfied at work? And, every year, every quarter, Gallup, I don't know if you ever heard of Gallup, but they put out a global workplace study report. And you look at the key, there's only not that many questions in the report, but it's like things like, how engaged are you at work? How satisfied are you at work? And, it's like 29, 19% say I'm engaged, 21% say I'm satisfied. And, those numbers have been pretty constant over the last 10, 12, 15 years, but they have ticked down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the bottom line is that, people want to be engaged at work. They want to be enriched. They want to be, and I think a lot of organizations, a lot of cultures, corporate cultures, they try to do the things they need to do to make people feel engaged and satisfied. But typically, it's kind of either window dressing, or they don't really get to the root problems. And so coaching and my coaching and advisory services, like a lot of other professionals, focus on helping people kind of navigate that, but also working with the leaders to bring a more enlightened approach.
Tell me, you leader, you started in advertising, right? And talk a little about your background and what brought you here, if you don't mind sharing with us.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've worked, my first job in advertising was working in London at one of the big global advertising agencies, and in strategic planning. I did that, came back to New York, and then I went to law school, and I practiced law school for 3 years. Practiced law for 3 years. So I worked in advertising for 3 years, went to law school and then practiced for 3 years, and then came back. And this was during the time of the dot-com mania. So I worked for a few years at one of these high-flying digital strategy consultancies that, like every other company, went bust. But since that time, I've been in various leadership roles at big agency networks. The Grays and the Young Rubicam, which is now called VML Y&R, but working on the RGA, which is a really big digital agency, but working on top tier brands, in whether it was in automotive, financial services, insurance, a lot of life sciences and healthcare. So, I've had the opportunity to see inside, some of the biggest, companies, global companies, and how they operate, whether it's Microsoft or Pfizer or Aetna, other companies. And so, so kind of what got me here is, over the years, just, it's interesting because I've always loved marketing, and when I was in my doctoral program, had the opportunity to take a couple of organizational behavior courses, and I really enjoyed the organizational behavior stuff. And so I was like, it's interesting. It's like I think a lot of marketing teams and a lot of marketing, especially agencies, also could benefit from some of the things that they talk about in this this, call it the OB research. So that was kind of the catalyst for me. I feel like also I maxed out, having been 20 plus years in the marketing services industry. You can only do so many things, and after a while it just becomes a little unfulfilling, if you will. So I felt it was a great opportunity for me, to use my experience and skills, to support the industry and to support the profession.
Got it. Well, also to remind everyone how we can reach you, best form, all forms of contact, Dr.
Fred at attainleadership.com. Attainleadership.com is the website. And my LinkedIn, Fred Petito on LinkedIn.
All right. We still got 2 minutes left. 2 minutes left. There's a lot to you. What else do you want to share with everyone before we go? I mean, there's so much to you. I know you spent 25 years working in marketing, and here you are with this amazing company. Any words of advice out there, someone listening today that we could get through that help? What did you want to say?
Yeah, I mean, I guess this is just the self-awareness that, for anyone, if their aspiration is to move into a leadership role, the technical skills, the functional skills, whether in finance, marketing, technology, those are critical and foundational, but those are not the things that are going to make you a great leader. If you want to be, a president, division president, or whatever, it's a different skill set, and the leadership skill set is not the technical skills that got you where you are. So what's gotten you where you are now may not get you where you want to be in that leadership role.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Pleasure getting to know you today here at Attain Leadership. And I hope someone reaches out. If they have any questions, do you offer like an initial consultation if someone is interested? That's always good. That's always good. Any social media pages you want to share?
Just LinkedIn for now. We're going to get Facebook up and running soon. And so that's and we're going to get a YouTube channel up as well. But for now, it's LinkedIn.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Pleasure to have you here, and so glad you're here on your mission to help so many people. Again, Attain Leadership. Dr. Fred Petito here joining us. Please reach out with any questions, and getting to know you today. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jill. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day. And to all of our listeners, stay tuned. More of the show is coming up right after the break.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, I mean, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.